So growing up in church in Brazil, it's hell,
Yeah.
sorry for the bad words, but it is very hard because church does a really bad job in a lot of things, and one of them is in allowing people to understand who they are, because church wants you to be what they want you to be, so that's pretty much the reality in Brazil. So I grew up hearing all the time that if I'm gay, I'm gonna go to hell, and if I'm gay, God is gonna punish me, and if I'm gay, God hates me, and that's what I grew up hearing all the time, And if I come out as gay in Brazil, I'm not allowed to walk into a church, So it was very hard for me because my family, everybody is from a church. So I was like, I cannot go, get out of the closet, come out of the closet here. It's not a safe place. I don't know what my parents how they will react, and I don't know how my friends will react. I don't know anything. But everybody knows. We don't become gay. Gay is something that you're born with. Like being gay, like I was born gay, so everybody knew. Since I was a kid. Like when I came out of the closet here, it's funny because my parents, they were like, "Okay, we knew it. We knew it." So my mom was like, "Yeah, you used to play with dolls when you were, a kid, and you would beg us to buy you wig, and then you would pretend that you're Beyonce, And I'm like, "Yes." So that I'm gay.
Yeah. So your parents were more liberal about it than
they were. Yeah, my dad was still a little, because that's how they were raised. They were raised in a society that says that it's not right. It's wrong. But my parents, they were very open, to hearing about my process, because coming out of the closet is not an act. It's a process. And, it was a really big process for me because the first time that I came to the United States, I was working in a summer camp as a summer camp counselor. And when I went there, it was a summer camp related and connected to the Presbyterian Church of Philadelphia. And my pastors were gay. So it was very, at the same time, it was very shocking for me. It was so important for me to be able to see God through the eyes that a lot of the churches will see here, which is a loving God, and which is, a God that doesn't care if you're gay or if you're straight, So it was very important for me. So I believe that everything that happened in my life allowed me to come out of the closet here while being here. And it was very important for me to do it while being here because I don't think that I would have had the strength and the courage to do it back in Brazil. And I really admire the people that do that. I have so many friends that became homeless. And of course, later on, they were able to find a home or whatever. But I have so many friends that they were kicked out of their houses because, their parents were like, if you're gay, you're not my son anymore. Or, so it's very hard because we have loving parents on this, and like on this side, but they're like, we love you, but don't disappoint us, don't tell us that you're gay, because your job is to find a girl and, and just, have children with that girl and, marry and buy a house and, like what society tells you to do, like go to college, find a girlfriend, marry that girl, have a dog, adopt, get children, and
so there's probably, I guess and I guess there's a lot of gays there that do that just because it's that's the tradition to do, even though that's not what they want to do.
Yeah, there's so many people that they're not out of the closet, And when I came out of the closet, I came out very unapologetically and I was very clear about that, and I just was super clear about that, and I am very happy that I was able to inspire so many people. And what is really sad is that there are people in Brazil that are married, people in Brazil that they have children, and they came to talk to me and they said, Gabe, I never had the courage to talk about that. And I was never able to do that. Like there's so many people in Brazil that they're not old. I'm not saying that 28 years old is old, but I don't think that it's okay to come out. I mean, it's okay to come out at any time, take your time. Everybody should take their time. But what I'm trying to say is society does a really bad job in helping us understand who we are, that it's so sad to see that somebody at 28 years old, is still insecure about coming out of the closet, in a country so developed like Brazil, and I'm like, what is wrong with us? What did we do wrong? And of course the roots of it is, religion.
Yeah, and I know it's also the president now is like super right wing too, right?
It's
Whatever.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very homophobic from the first moment until today. You know, he literally said on live television that he'd rather had a murderer in his house and a thief than a gay son. You know, he
Oh
literally
wow.
said that on live television. He said, if my children, if my sons were gay, I would, you know, kill them, or I would
Wow.
find a way for them to die. And I'd rather have drug dealers in my house than, you know, a gay son. And, you know, he would say such horrible things. And, you know, that just encourages people to,
Yeah.
that doesn't influence people to think the way that he thinks, but it influences the people that thinks the way that he thinks to speak up as well. You know, so
Yeah.
if
He's like
people,
Trump times 1,000, I guess is what he sounds like. Like Trump,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know, he would be speaking up about, you know, he would be with all of these hate speeches on live television. So people, if, you know, people watching him would like, okay, if he can say that on live television, I can be like that, you know, in real life, you know, which got everything worse. So more gays are dying in Brazil. You know, more people, more transgender people are dying. You know, last week, for example, was a big case. You know, a doctor just left a transgender woman unattended, and she died. You know, and he literally said that like the reason why he left her is because she's not a her. You know, it's
Oh wow.
he or whatever. So it's so sad. You know, the reality there is really sad. So I'm really like I definitely want to go back, visit my parents, and be with my family, and, you know, explore Brazil here and there, whatever. But I do not see myself living there anymore, because even in the liberal cities, even in the big cities, it's still very hard. You know, I cannot find myself like here. I would go out on dates. I would be holding hands with my friend, with, you know, my boyfriends or whatever, and people wouldn't care. You know, but in Brazil, if I do that, if I hold hands with a guy, I have a really big chance to be punched in the face. You know,
Oh wow.
so and it's and I'm not exaggerating. It's that, like it's that violent. You know, people will literally punch you in the face, and they will be like, "Oh, but God doesn't approve that." And I'm like, "Okay, but what does God approve? Violence?" You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess is there like a strong liberal like civil rights movement there or anything, or that's trying to be heard, or
Yes. We're trying our best. You know, it's just very hard. You know, right now in this government, because he does. You know, it's I don't know. He just does the best to, you know, distract people from focusing on solving problems. You know, so I don't know, it's just very hard. But yeah, there is a lot of, you know, movements in Brazil, and, you know, and protests. And I'm very proud to say that we have the largest LGBT pride parade in the world. You know, so the largest pride parade happens in Brazil. You know, like over 2 million people attended. You know, it's crazy. So like every time that we have a pride parade, we, you know, it's a moment of speaking up. You know, it's a moment of going out on the streets dressed with all the rainbow colors, you know, and show to the world that, you know, and that it's okay to be gay. But I feel like that, like what happened here to the gay community in the 70s, I think. Yeah. You know, with all of the Stonewall, whatever, everything that happened here has not happened in Brazil. So I feel like that
yeah,
we need something to, you know, like to, I'm not saying that we need a war, but we need
yeah,
something, you know, to, I don't know what we need. It's very hard for me to decide, but I don't know. It's very, I'm also very, it's funny because I came out of the closet so late. I feel like that there's so much for me to learn. You know, there's so much for me to learn about the LGBT history, about LGBT history in the world, but also, and most importantly, in my country. You know, so I've been learning so much. You know, every time that I talk to my gay friends, I learn something new. You know, and I feel like that I'm very privileged because I don't know the reality. You know, being really honest, I don't know what it's like to walk on the streets in Brazil holding hands with a guy. You know, I know what it's like to be feminine and to be spontaneous or whatever. You know, I've had moments that people were super homophobic to me. I've had moments where I couldn't get a certain job because, you know, they thought that I was too gay or whatever. Yeah, that happened to me. But I've never had a moment where I was with a guy and, you know, and then people were homophobic to me, but that's a reality there too. So I'm really scared. I don't really want to go back.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something about. Do you think there's something about the American culture maybe that made it easier to have, like, despite all the racism and everything, to have like a civil rights movement and like a gay rights movement here as opposed to Brazil?
I think so. But I think that because of history, things here happened way before in the past. Brazil is a very young country, which is one thing that I love to talk about. Like there are a lot of things that, like, Brazil is as young as Harvard University, so like, we're still taking baby steps, towards progress. We're still we're still learning. I know that no country is perfect, but there are things that happen here in the United States 40 years ago that hasn't happened in Brazil yet. We were the last country in the whole world to abolish slavery, so we're still learning how to be a country, so yes, I agree with you, but I think it's a matter of, like, we need to get people used to all this. We're bringing this more to the table. I feel like that we've been talking more about it. I remember that when I was a kid, we didn't talk about gays, and we didn't talk about HIV. We didn't talk about all of these things because, we couldn't talk about it. But now you turn on TV and then you see a gay kiss on TV, which is great, so I feel like that the society is learning to, to understand that, not to accept, but to at least understand that we exist, So I feel like that there are a lot of the movements that happen here, they happened a long time ago. And that's why America is way more advanced and way more, how can I say that? Yeah, I would say advanced, like way more advanced than Brazil in a lot of ways, because we're a very young country and we're still, making these movements happen, But yeah.
Yeah, and I like what you said earlier about, like, a non-punitive God, because I feel like I don't like that idea of like a punitive God. I mean, I'm not religious. I do believe in a higher power and like a God of some sort, not like a humanoid God. But I never like the idea of a punitive God that is just like, because someone's this way, they're gonna burn in hell for eternity. Like, to me, that's not a higher being. That's like a human would do
Exactly.
that. Like, torture someone because they don't like their ideas. And I remember there was actually, because like growing up, like we kind of experimented with different things. I went to synagogue, I went to church, and my sister like kind of did the same thing. And the Presbyterian church, she asked them as a little girl, like, are my grandparents going to go to hell because they were Jews? And they said, yeah, they're going to go to hell. And then another woman once asked my mother, like, oh, where do Jews go when they die? Like, because I know they don't go to heaven and stuff. So I like similar things like that. And I was like,
yeah, it is so sad. It is really, really sad. And it's funny because I'm a translator and I'm an interpreter. I studied a lot about the Bible translation. And one of the things that, a lot of people don't believe, but it's still, it's still a big, debate, but it's how when the Bible was translated into English, there were a lot of English words added to all the scripture, and one of them was homosexuality, So, for example, in Leviticus, people say, oh, you shouldn't lay with a man, but, the real translation said that you should lay with a boy, so it's literally talking about, pedophilia, so, so I feel like that, I don't know, like it's very, it is very dangerous for me to accuse people or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is I do believe that when the Bible was translated, there were a lot of things that were added because of racism, because of, of homophobia, because of so many things that the church wanted to impose on people, and so God just became what the church wanted them to be, so.
Yeah, it's a way to manipulate people. And
exactly. So, and it's fun because, like, the reason why I'm saying this is, like, I will say this without hesitating. In Brazil, the Bible in Portuguese is terrible. It is terrible. If you get a Bible in English and if you get a Bible in Portuguese, there are words in the Portuguese Bible that don't exist in English. Like, when I say words, I'm talking about the words that change the meaning of that specific verse,